Clara's hands trembled as she stood in the sterile hospital corridor, her cream-colored dress stained dark with blood. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, harsh and unforgiving. Doctors and nurses rushed past her, their urgent footsteps echoing against the tiled floor. Somewhere behind those double doors, her unborn twins were fighting for their lives. Her phone rang again. Donald. The 7th call in 15 minutes. She stared at his name flashing on the screen, her husband of 5 years, the man who had promised to love and protect her. The same man who had just stood frozen at the bottom of those marble stairs, watching her bleed. Clara didn't answer. Her mother's voice cut through the chaos. Clara, the doctors are asking for you. She turned, her legs weak, her heart shattered. Inside that emergency room, 2 tiny hearts were beating, or perhaps had already stopped. And outside, in the parking lot of that luxury car dealership, stood the reason for it all. A brand new SUV purchased with her money, for the woman who had just pushed her down 8 concrete steps. The woman carrying her husband's child. Or so they all believed. Before we continue, let me ask you something quietly. Where are you listening from right now? And what time is it in your part of the world? Some of us are hearing this story under the hot afternoon sun. Some in the calm of the night, when thoughts are heavy and hearts are open. Different places, one story, one lesson. If stories like this speak to your heart, please subscribe to the channel. Your like helps this story reach another soul. Your comment tells me you understand the lesson. And when you share, you may be saving someone from the same mistake. Now let us continue. 6 months earlier, Clara had believed in love. She stood in her late father's textile company warehouse, running her fingers across bolts of imported fabric, Ankara prints, silk, lace, each one representing a piece of the empire her father, Chief Okoro, had built from nothing. He had died 3 years ago, leaving everything to Clara, his only child. The business, the properties, the legacy. You're working too hard again, Grace said, walking into the warehouse with 2 bottles of cold water. Grace had been Clara's best friend since university, the sister she never had. Clara smiled, accepting the water. Papa always said idle hands build nothing. Your papa also said a woman needs balance, Grace countered, her eyes knowing. When last did Donald take you out? When last did you two actually talk? The smile faded from Clara's face. He's busy with the new marketing campaign. You know how demanding it can be. Clara. Grace moved closer, her voice dropping. I saw him last week at the Palms. He was with someone. Clara's heart skipped. A client, probably. He meets clients there all the time. This didn't look like business. Grace hesitated. She was young, pretty, and the way he was looking at her. Stop. Clara held up her hand. Donald loves me. We're trying for a baby, Grace. After 3 miscarriages, we're finally being careful, doing everything right. He wouldn't. I hope you're right, Grace said quietly. I just want you to be careful. That evening, Clara arrived home to their luxurious 4-bedroom house in Lekki, a house she had bought before meeting Donald. She found him in his study, scrolling through his phone with unusual intensity. You're home late, she said from the doorway. Donald jumped, quickly darkening his screen. Clara. You startled me. Who were you texting? Just work stuff. Vendor negotiations. He stood, kissing her forehead with practiced affection. How was your day? Exhausting. The shipment from Ghana was delayed again. She studied his face, searching for signs of the stranger Grace had described. But she saw only her husband, handsome, charming Donald, with his perfect smile and smooth words. Donald, is everything okay between us? Of course. Why would you ask that? You've been distant lately. And I noticed some large withdrawals from the business account. Almost 8 million naira in the past 2 months. His jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. Investment opportunities. I told you about them. Why are you checking up on me? It's my company, Donald. I'm not checking up on you. I'm managing my assets. Our assets, he corrected coldly. We're married, remember? What's yours is mine. The words stung more than they should have. When they married 5 years ago, Clara had been 33, successful but lonely. Donald had been 28, ambitious, attentive, making her feel beautiful and desired. Against her mother's warnings about marrying a man with nothing but charm, Clara had fallen in love. She had given him access to everything. Her business accounts, her properties, her heart. And for the first 3 years it had been beautiful. But then came the miscarriages. 3 pregnancies lost, each one taking a piece of their marriage with it. I remember, Clara said quietly. I just want us to communicate better. Donald's phone buzzed. He glanced at it, and something flickered across his face. Anticipation, guilt? Something Clara couldn't quite name. I need to take this, he said, walking past her into the hallway. Clara stood alone in the study, her hand unconsciously moving to her belly. She was 6 months pregnant now, carrying twins, a boy and a girl. The doctors had called it a miracle after so many losses. Every day she prayed these babies would survive. But lately she'd been praying for something else too. That her marriage would survive. That night she couldn't sleep. Donald lay beside her, his phone face down on the nightstand, an invisible wall between them. At 2 a.m. while he slept, Clara did something she'd never done before. She checked his phone. Her hands shook as she scrolled through messages, bank transfers, photos. What she found made her blood run cold. Messages to someone named Diana. Intimate messages. Photos of a young woman, radiant and pregnant. And calendar entries. Lunch with D. Meet D at apartment. Doctor's appointment with D. Clara's vision blurred with tears. She kept scrolling, finding bank transfers, her money, flowing into accounts she didn't recognize. Receipts for jewelry, dinners at expensive restaurants, rent payments for an apartment in Victoria Island. The final message was timestamped 3 hours ago. Can't wait to see you tomorrow, my love. Our baby is kicking so much. He knows his daddy's voice. Clara sat in the darkness, her hand on her own swollen belly, feeling her twins move inside her. She wanted to scream, to wake Donald and demand answers. But something stopped her. Grace's warning echoed in her mind. And her mother's voice from years ago. Never confront a man when you're emotional, Clara. Gather your facts. Protect yourself first. So Clara took photos of everything with her own phone. Every message, every transaction, every lie documented. Then she put Donald's phone back exactly where she'd found it. She would follow him tomorrow. She would see Diana with her own eyes. She would discover the truth. But Clara had no idea that the truth would cost her everything. The next evening, Clara told Donald she was attending a business dinner. Instead, she sat in her car outside his office building, heart pounding, waiting. At 7 p.m., Donald emerged wearing the cologne she'd bought him for Christmas, the expensive one he claimed to save for special occasions. He climbed into his Mercedes and drove toward Victoria Island. Clara followed at a distance, her hands gripping the steering wheel so tightly her knuckles turned white. The twins kicked inside her, as if sensing their mother's distress. Donald pulled into the parking lot of the Boulevard, one of Lagos's most expensive restaurants. Clara parked across the street, watching as her husband checked his reflection in the car window, adjusting his tie, smiling in anticipation. Then she appeared. Diana. She couldn't have been older than 26, dressed in a flowing maternity dress that accentuated her pregnant belly. Her skin glowed with that radiance people spoke about. Her makeup was flawless. She was beautiful in the way young women are beautiful. Unlined, unworn by life's disappointments. Clara watched Donald's face light up in a way it hadn't for her in years. He rushed to Diana, cupping her face, kissing her with such tenderness that Clara felt physically sick. She watched him caress Diana's belly, whispering something that made the younger woman laugh. She watched him guide her into the restaurant with his hand on the small of her back, protective, loving, present. Everything he used to be with Clara. Everything he no longer was. Clara sat in her car for 10 minutes, warring with herself. The sensible part of her said to leave, to call her lawyers, to handle this with dignity. But the broken part, the part that had buried 3 babies and was now fighting to keep 2 more alive, that part needed confrontation. She needed to look this woman in the eye. Clara walked into the boulevard on shaking legs. The maitre d' tried to intercept her, but she pushed past, scanning the intimate dining room until she found them. Table 12. Corner booth. Donald feeding Diana a piece of chocolate cake, both of them laughing. Clara walked toward them, and it was Donald who saw her first. His face drained of color. The fork clattered against the plate. Clara. Don't. Her voice came out steady, though everything inside her was screaming. Don't say my name like you're surprised. Don't act like you didn't know this moment would come. Diana looked between them, her expression transforming from confusion to understanding to something ugly, triumph. So you're Clara, Diana said, looking her up and down with undisguised contempt. He said you were older, but I didn't realize. Who are you? Clara asked, though she already knew. I'm Diana, and I'm carrying Donald's son. She placed both hands on her belly possessively. The child you apparently can't give him. The words were designed to wound, and they succeeded. Clara felt tears burning behind her eyes, but she refused to let them fall. Not here. Not in front of this woman. Donald, come home, Clara said quietly. Whatever this is, we can. Whatever this is. Donald's voice was sharp, defensive. This is my happiness, Clara. This is what being alive feels like. The restaurant had gone quiet. Other diners pretended not to watch while hanging on every word. I've given you everything, Clara whispered. My business, my home, my trust. Your business, Donald interrupted bitterly. It's always your business, your money, your father's legacy. Do you know what it's like being Mr. Clara Okoro? Having everyone know I married into wealth. So you humiliate me? You steal from me. Steal. He laughed harshly. I'm your husband. What's yours is mine. Not anymore. Clara's voice hardened. I want you out of my house. Tonight. Diana leaned back in her chair, smirking. He hasn't lived in your house for 3 months, darling. He lives with me now. In the apartment he rented. With my money, our furniture, our life. Clara's world tilted. 3 months. While she'd been sleeping alone, worried about him working late, Donald had been building an entire separate life. The withdrawals, Clara breathed. 8 million naira. 18 million, actually. Diana corrected smugly. The apartment, the furniture, my allowance, doctor's appointments, maternity clothes. Donald takes care of me properly. Like a real man should. Clara looked at her husband, this stranger wearing Donald's face. Did you ever love me? For a moment something flickered in his eyes. Regret, maybe. Or just discomfort at the public scene. I thought I did, he said finally. But Diana makes me feel young again. She doesn't make me feel like a failure every time she loses a baby. She doesn't walk around like a martyr because her father left her a company. She's just easy to be with. Each word was a knife to Clara's heart. She thought of the 3 miscarriages, how she'd cried alone in hospital rooms while Donald had emergency meetings. How he'd grown distant with each loss, as if she'd failed him personally. I'm 6 months pregnant with your twins, Clara said, her voice breaking. Doesn't that mean anything? It means you should go home and rest, Donald said coldly. You're making a scene. It's not good for the babies. Clara laughed. A hollow broken sound. You're concerned about my babies now? They're my babies too. Are they? When did you last come to a doctor's appointment? When did you last ask how I'm feeling? Diana stood up abruptly, her chair scraping against the floor. This is pathetic. He doesn't want you anymore, old woman. Accept it and move on. Old woman. Clara repeated. I'm 38. Exactly. Used up. Dried. That's why you keep losing babies. Your body knows it's too old. The cruelty was breathtaking. Clara took a step back, her hand protectively covering her belly. Come on, Donald, Diana said, linking her arm through his. Let's go home. Our son is kicking. He wants his daddy. Donald stood. He looked at Clara one last time, and in that moment she saw it clearly. He had already left her. The man she'd loved was gone, replaced by someone she didn't recognize. They walked out together, leaving Clara standing alone in the restaurant while dozens of eyes watched her humiliation. Her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. She opened it with trembling fingers. Photos. A sleek black SUV, Range Rover latest model. And a message. Donald's gift to me. Picked it up tomorrow. A real man provides. D. Clara's legs gave out. A waiter rushed over, helping her to a chair. Madam, are you all right? Should we call someone? My mother, Clara whispered. Call my mother. That night, lying in her childhood bedroom at her mother's estate, Clara made a decision. She would follow this to the end. She would see exactly how far Donald's betrayal went. She would discover where her money had really gone. And tomorrow she would go to that car dealership. Tomorrow everything would change. Clara barely slept. At dawn she was already dressed, her mother Patricia watching her with worried eyes. "Let me come with you," Patricia urged. "You shouldn't be alone in your condition." "I need to do this myself, Mama." Clara touched her belly, where the twins were just beginning to wake. "I need to see it with my own eyes." She'd called the dealership, Premium Motors in Lekki, pretending to inquire about the Range Rover purchase. The salesman had been chatty, proud of the sale. "Yes, Ma, big sale yesterday. Mr. Donald paid 18 million naira. Beautiful SUV. His wife is very lucky. 18 million naira. The exact amount missing from Clara's business account. Clara arrived at Premium Motors at 10 a.m. The showroom gleamed with luxury vehicles, each one worth more than most Nigerians earned in a lifetime. And there, in the collection bay, sat the black Range Rover from Diana's photo. Donald and Diana were there. Diana wore a flowing white dress, laughing as a salesman explained the vehicle's features. Donald stood beside her, his hand on her lower back, looking proud, like a man providing for his family. With Clara's money. Clara walked across the showroom floor, her heels clicking against the marble. Several salespeople noticed her, but she walked past them all, headed straight for her husband and his mistress. "Clara." Donald's face paled. "What are you doing here?" "I could ask you the same question." Clara's voice was calm, dangerously calm. "But I already know. You're picking up the Range Rover you bought with 18 million naira stolen from my business account." The salespeople nearby stopped talking. Diana turned, her eyes narrowing. "Stolen?" Donald's voice rose defensively. "We're married. It's community property." "Actually, it's not." Clara pulled out her phone, showing him the prenuptial agreement they'd signed. "Remember this? What's mine remains mine. You have access as my husband, but unauthorized transfers constitute theft." A crowd was gathering. Other customers, salespeople, even the showroom manager. "You're embarrassing yourself," Donald hissed. "Go home, Clara." "My home? The one you haven't slept in for 3 months? Or did you mean the apartment you're renting with my money?" Diana stepped forward, her belly prominent, her face twisted with anger. "Listen, you bitter old woman. I'm not talking to you," Clara cut her off. "I'm talking to my husband. Donald, I'm giving you one chance. Cancel this purchase. Return the money to my account. Come home. We can work through this." "Work through this?" Donald laughed harshly. "There's nothing to work through. I don't love you anymore, Clara. I love Diana. I want this life. I want my son." "What about your daughter and son?" Clara's hand moved to her belly. "The twins I'm carrying? Your children. You'll lose them anyway," Diana said viciously. "Just like you lost the others. Your dried-up womb can't hold a baby. Everyone knows that." The words hung in the air, cruel and cutting. Clara felt something break inside her. "How dare you?" she whispered. "I dare because it's true," Diana continued, emboldened by Donald's silence. "Look at you. Pathetic. Desperate. Clinging to a man who doesn't want you. I'm younger, I'm fertile, I'm giving him a healthy son. What can you give him? Failure? Disappointment?" "Diana, that's enough," Donald said, but there was no real force behind it. Clara's vision blurred with tears but also with rage. Rage at Donald's betrayal, at Diana's cruelty, at her own powerlessness. "This ends now," Clara said firmly. "I'm freezing the business accounts. I'm calling my lawyers. That car goes back, and every naira you've stolen gets returned, or I file charges." "You wouldn't dare," Donald said. "The scandal would destroy your precious company reputation." "Try me." Clara reached for Donald's arm, desperate to make him understand, to shake some sense into the stranger he'd become. "Please, Donald. Think about what you're doing. Think about our babies. Don't touch him." Diana shrieked. Everything happened in slow motion. Diana lunged forward, both hands extended. She shoved Clara with surprising force, not just pushing her away, but pushing her backward, toward the marble entrance stairs. Clara's feet left the ground. She twisted, trying to catch herself, her hands instinctively moving to protect her belly. But there was nothing to grab, nothing to stop her fall. The stairs were marble, 8 steps from the showroom level to the entrance. Clara's body hit the first step, bounced, hit the second. She heard screaming, her own, Diana's, someone else's. 3rd step. 4th. Her head cracked against the edge. 5th. 6th. Her back slammed down and she felt something inside her shift, tear, break. 7th. 8th. She landed at the bottom, crumpled, her cream dress spreading around her like a broken flower. And then the blood came. Warm, wet, spreading fast. Too fast. Clara lay on the cold marble, her vision swimming. She could see Donald at the top of the stairs, frozen in shock. She could see Diana with both hands over her mouth, backing away. She could see the dealership staff rushing toward her, phones out, calling for help. But all Clara could focus on was the feeling inside her. The terrible, catastrophic wrongness. The silence where there should have been movement. Her twins. "No," she whispered. "No, no, no." Someone knelt beside her. "Madam, don't move. Ambulance is coming." "My babies," Clara gasped. Blood soaked through her dress, pooling beneath her. "Please, my babies." Diana's voice, shrill and panicked. "It was an accident." She reached for Donald and I didn't mean. "Shut up," someone yelled. "Someone get security footage. Now." Clara's hand found her belly, felt the stillness there. Tears streamed down her face, mixing with the blood from the cut on her head. She heard sirens, felt hands lifting her carefully onto a stretcher, saw camera phones recording, witnesses gathering, and she saw Donald finally moving, rushing down the stairs with wild eyes. "Clara, Clara, I'm sorry I didn't." But his words were drowned out by the roar of her own heartbreak, the physical agony of her body, and the deafening silence from her womb. In the ambulance, as the paramedic worked frantically, Clara gripped his arm. "Save my babies," she pleaded, her voice breaking. "Please God, please save my babies." The paramedic's face told her everything she needed to know. But she kept praying anyway. All the way to the hospital. Through the emergency room doors. Into the darkness of unconsciousness. She prayed for a miracle that would never come. Clara woke to the sound of machines beeping and her mother's quiet weeping. The hospital room was white and sterile, sunlight streaming through the windows. Patricia sat beside the bed, holding Clara's hand, her face etched with grief. "Mama!" Clara's voice was hoarse. Patricia's head snapped up, her eyes red and swollen. "Clara! Oh, my baby, you're awake." She pressed the call button frantically. "Nurse! Doctor! She's awake." Clara tried to sit up, but pain lanced through her abdomen. Her hand moved instinctively to her belly, and found it flat. "No," she whispered. "No, no, no." "Clara," Patricia's voice broke. "Where are my babies?" Clara's voice rose to a scream. "Where are my babies?" A doctor rushed in, Dr. Adebayo, a kind-faced woman in her 50s. She approached the bed carefully, her expression full of compassion. "Mrs. Clara, I need you to breathe for me. Can you do that? My twins. Tell me about my twins." Dr. Adebayo sat on the edge of the bed, taking Clara's free hand. "I'm so sorry. The fall caused placental abruption. We performed an emergency C-section, but they were too small, too fragile. We couldn't save them." The words didn't feel real. Clara stared at the doctor, waiting for her to take it back, to say it was a mistake. "Both of them," she whispered. "Both of them. A boy and a girl, just as you knew. They didn't suffer, Clara. I promise you that." Clara's world shattered. A sound came from her throat. Animal and human, full of grief too deep for words. Patricia gathered her into her arms, and they wept together, mother and daughter, drowning in loss. "But there's something important you need to know," Dr. Adebayo said gently. "Your uterus is intact. Despite the trauma, despite everything, we were able to save your fertility. You can have children again, Clara. When you're ready, when you've healed." But Clara wasn't listening. She didn't care about someday, about future children. She cared about hope and peace, the name she'd already chosen for her twins. The boy and girl who would never take their first breath, never feel their mother's arms. The door opened. Donald stood there, looking haggard, his clothes rumpled. "Get out," Patricia said, her voice cold as ice. "I need to talk to Clara." You've done enough. Clara's brothers, Michael and Stephen, appeared behind Donald, their faces hard. You're not welcome here. Those were my children too. Donald's voice cracked with grief. Were they? Stephen shot back. When did you last care about Clara's children? When you were spending her money on your mistress. When you stood by while that woman pushed your pregnant wife down the stairs. I didn't know Diana would. Didn't know. Michael stepped forward menacingly. You created this situation, Donald. You betrayed your wife, humiliated her publicly, stole from her, and for what? For that girl. Where is she? Clara's voice was hollow. Where's Diana? Donald's silence was answer enough. She left you, Clara said, not really a question. She's scared. The police want to question her. Her family took her. And you? Clara looked at him with dead eyes. Did you come to grovel? To apologize? To tell me you're sorry our children are dead? I never wanted this, Clara. I never wanted them to die. But you wanted everything else. You wanted her. You wanted my money. You wanted a new life. Clara's voice grew stronger, fueled by rage. Well, congratulations, Donald. You got it. And it cost 2 innocent lives. Patricia stood, her voice ringing with authority. I've already called our lawyers. Every asset in Clara's name has been frozen. Your access to the business accounts has been revoked. The car purchase has been canceled. Premium Motors was very understanding once they saw the security footage. Security footage, Stephen added, pulling out his phone. Want to see it, Donald? Want to watch your mistress push your pregnant wife down the stairs? It's very clear. Diana's hands on Clara's shoulders pushing hard. Witnesses said she was screaming about Clara not touching you. Donald's face went gray. This will ruin me. It should, Michael said flatly. You should be in prison. The only reason you're not is because Mama convinced Clara not to press charges. Yet, she doesn't want the stress while she's recovering. But make no mistake, Patricia continued. You will repay every naira you stole. The prenuptial agreement is very clear. And you will sign divorce papers immediately, or we will press charges against both you and Diana for assault, theft, and fraud. I have nothing, Donald whispered. If you take everything. You should have thought of that before you destroyed your marriage for a woman half your age, Patricia said coldly. Now get out of this hospital before I have security remove you. Donald looked at Clara one last time. She saw the realization dawning in his eyes, the magnitude of what he'd lost, what he'd destroyed. I'm sorry, he said. Sorry doesn't bring them back, Clara replied. Sorry doesn't undo what you've done. Sorry is just a word from a man who has nothing left. Donald left, escorted by hospital security. Clara would never see him again. But that night, alone in her hospital room, Clara received a visitor she didn't expect. Grace came carrying white roses, Clara's favorite. She sat beside the bed without speaking, just holding Clara's hand while tears streamed down both their faces. I should have made you listen, Grace finally whispered. When I warned you. You couldn't have known, Clara said. None of us could have known how far he'd go. What's happening with Diana? I don't know. I don't care. But that was a lie. Clara cared very much. She wanted Diana to suffer the way she was suffering. She wanted justice for hope and peace. 2 days later, Patricia brought news that changed everything. Diana's family came to see me, Patricia said, sitting in the chair beside Clara's hospital bed. They're terrified. They know what she did, they saw the footage. They're trying to make amends. What could they possibly offer me? Clara asked bitterly. The truth. Patricia pulled out her phone, showing Clara a voice recording. Listen to this. Diana's voice, tearful and panicked. Mama, you don't understand. The baby isn't even Donald's. It's Marcus's. I lied to trap Donald for his money, well, Clara's money. I thought I could secure a future, but now everything is ruined. The recording continued. Diana's mother, shocked and angry. You mean you let that man destroy his marriage, spend millions all for a lie? I'm pregnant. I needed money. Marcus wouldn't marry me, so I found someone who would. Donald was perfect, stupid, vain, easy to manipulate. I just had to make him feel young and important. But I didn't think his wife would actually fight back. Clara listened to the entire recording. her emotions cycling from shock to rage to something like vindication. She admitted it, Clara breathed. The baby isn't his. Diana's mother was disgusted. She made Diana confess everything. How she targeted Donald specifically because she knew he was married to money. How she timed the pregnancy announcement. How she manipulated him into believing the baby was his. Does he know? Her family told him this morning. Patricia's smile was grim. Apparently, he's not taking it well. Clara should have felt satisfaction. Instead, she felt empty. Donald had destroyed their marriage, spent their money, and indirectly killed their children. All for a lie. He'd lost everything for nothing. It was almost too pathetic to hate. I want to name them, Clara said suddenly. My babies. They deserve names. Patricia's eyes filled with tears. What will you call them? Hope. And peace. Clara touched her flat belly, where her children had once grown. Hope for what could have been. Peace for what they'll never know. The hospital held a small memorial service. Just family. Clara held 2 tiny urns, blessed by a priest, and spoke words she'd written through tears. You were loved, she whispered. You were wanted. You were hope and peace, and you always will be. Donald was not invited. But somewhere across Lagos, in a small rented room, Donald sat alone, staring at the DNA test results Diana's family had provided. 0% probability of paternity. He'd lost everything for a child that wasn't even his. And there was no one left to blame but himself. 2 years passed. Clara stood in her office, looking out over Lagos's sprawling city line. Her textile company had not only survived, it had flourished. Without Donald's wasteful spending and poor decisions, profits had increased by 40%. But more than that, Clara had changed. The woman who had loved desperately, who had forgiven easily, who had believed in second chances, that woman had died on those marble stairs. The woman who remained was stronger, wiser, more careful with her heart. Miss Clara. Her assistant knocked gently. Your 2 o'clock is here. Clara turned from the window, smoothing her emerald green dress. Send him in. Emmanuel walked into her office, and Clara felt her heart lift the way it always did when she saw him. Tall with kind eyes and an easy smile, Emmanuel was everything Donald had never been: genuine. They'd met a year ago at a charity gala. Emmanuel was an architect, designing affordable housing for low-income families. He'd approached Clara about a partnership, her textiles for his projects. But over coffee meetings that turned into dinner dates, they'd discovered something deeper. You look beautiful, Emmanuel said, kissing her cheek. You're biased, Clara smiled. Completely. He settled into the chair across from her desk. So, the project in Abuja is approved. We break ground next month. That's wonderful. Clara's eyes lit up. This was their 3rd joint project. Housing developments that employed local textile workers and created sustainable communities. There's something else. Emmanuel's smile turned nervous. Something I wanted to ask you. Before Clara could respond, there was a commotion in the outer office. Raised voices. Her assistant protesting. The door burst open. Donald stood there, looking nothing like the man Clara had married. He'd aged a decade in 2 years. His suit was cheap, ill-fitting. His face was gaunt, his eyes hollow. Clara, please. I need to talk to you. Emmanuel stood immediately, protective. Who is this? My ex-husband, Clara said calmly. Security should have stopped you, Donald. I bribed the guard. Clara, please. Just 5 minutes. I have nothing to say to you. But I have something to say to you. Donald's voice broke desperately. I've lost everything, Clara. Everything. I'm living in a single room in Ajij. I can't find work. Your mother made sure of that. I have nothing. And whose fault is that? Clara's voice was ice. I know. I know it's my fault. I was stupid, greedy, blind. Diana used me, manipulated me. But that doesn't excuse what I did to you. Tears streamed down Donald's face. I think about them every day. Hope and peace. Our babies. I dream about them, Clara. I see what they would have looked like, and I don't. Clara's voice cracked for the first time. Don't you dare speak their names. You don't get to mourn children you helped kill. I'm begging you. Please. Just give me another chance. I'll work in the warehouse. I'll start at the bottom. I'll do anything. No. Clara. No, she repeated firmly. You had 5 years of chances, Donald. You had a wife who loved you, who gave you everything. You had twins on the way. And you threw it all away for lies and lust. There are no more chances. Donald fell to his knees, actually weeping. I can't survive like this. I have nothing. I am nothing. Then you should have thought of that before you betrayed me, Clara said coldly. Security. 2 guards entered, lifting Donald to his feet. Please. Donald struggled. Just some money. Just enough to. You've had enough of my money, Clara said. More than enough. Now get out of my building and never come back. If you try to contact me again, I will press charges. The statute of limitations hasn't expired. As security dragged Donald away, his anguished cries echoed through the hallway. Clara didn't watch him go. She simply returned to her desk, her hands trembling slightly. Emmanuel sat down slowly, watching her with concerned eyes. Are you all right? I'm fine, Clara said. But tears were gathering in her eyes. I thought I'd feel something. Anger, satisfaction, something. But I just feel empty. Emmanuel moved around the desk, kneeling beside her chair. What he did to you was unforgivable, Clara. But don't let him take any more from you. Don't let him steal your joy. What joy? This joy. Emmanuel pulled a small box from his pocket, opening it to reveal a simple, elegant ring. I love you, Clara. Not your money, not your company. You. Your strength, your kindness, your resilience. Will you marry me? Clara stared at the ring, her emotions overwhelming. After everything she'd lost, after all the pain, here was this good man offering her a future. Yes, she whispered. Yes. They married 6 months later in a small ceremony. Clara's family welcomed Emmanuel warmly. He'd proven himself patient, respectful, and genuinely devoted. And 4 months after the wedding, Clara discovered she was pregnant. She didn't tell anyone at first, terrified that history would repeat itself. But this pregnancy was different. No bleeding. No cramping. Just steady, healthy growth. At 12 weeks, she finally told Emmanuel. At 16 weeks, they learned she was having a girl. At 20 weeks, when Clara felt the first strong kicks, she finally allowed herself to believe. Meanwhile, across the city, Diana struggled as a single mother. Marcus, the real father of her child, had denied paternity until a court-ordered DNA test proved otherwise. But proving paternity didn't make him a father. He paid minimal child support and wanted nothing to do with Diana or their son. The Range Rover had been repossessed. The apartment Donald had rented was long gone. Diana lived with her parents, working as a shop attendant. Her dreams of luxury reduced to memories of a lie that had cost everyone everything. She'd heard about Donald's downfall but felt nothing. He'd been a means to an end and he'd failed. She'd heard about Clara's new marriage and pregnancy, and that made her feel something, bitter envy. But mostly Diana felt nothing at all. Emptiness where her conscience should have been. Donald, meanwhile, had descended further. Unable to find professional work in Lagos where everyone knew his scandal, he'd moved to Ibadan, taking whatever jobs he could find. He worked as a clerk, as a driver, as anything that would pay. But the jobs never lasted. He'd become unreliable, depressive, haunted by what he'd lost. He heard about Clara's pregnancy through social media. Someone had posted congratulations on her company's page. He saw photos of her glowing, happy, with a man who looked at her the way Donald once had. The way he'd thrown away. That night, Donald sat in his shabby room, looking at old photos on his cracked phone. Clara on their wedding day. Clara laughing at something he'd said. Clara showing him the positive pregnancy test that last time, her eyes full of hope. Hope and peace. Their children dead because of his choices. He opened a bottle of cheap whiskey and drank until the memories blurred. 9 months after Emmanuel's proposal, Clara gave birth to a healthy baby girl. She weighed 7 pounds 4 ounces. She had Clara's eyes and Emmanuel's nose. They named her Joy. Clara lay in the hospital bed. Emmanuel beside her, holding their daughter. Patricia stood nearby, tears of happiness streaming down her face. She's perfect, Patricia whispered. She is, Clara agreed, touching Joy's tiny fingers. She's our miracle. Outside the hospital, unbeknownst to Clara, Donald stood in the parking lot. He'd heard about the birth through the same social media channels. He'd come, not knowing why, not planning to enter, just to stand there and witness what might have been his. He saw Emmanuel leave to buy flowers, saw Patricia and Clara's brothers visiting, saw the celebration of a life he wasn't part of. And Donald finally understood. There was no redemption for what he'd done. No forgiveness that would change the past. No amount of suffering that would bring back hope and peace. He'd made his choices, and now he would live with the consequences forever. Donald walked away from the hospital, disappearing into the Lagos traffic. Clara would never know he'd been there. She was too busy looking at her daughter, feeling Joy's heartbeat against her chest, marveling at the miracle of new life. "Thank you," Clara whispered to Emmanuel, "for being patient, for waiting, for loving me even when I was broken." "You were never broken," Emmanuel said softly. "Just wounded. But wounds heal, Clara. And you're proof of that." Clara kissed her daughter's forehead, breathing in that new baby smell. She thought about hope and peace, the children she'd lost. They would always be part of her story, always be loved. But Joy was her future. Joy was proof that after the darkest night, morning could still come. Joy was evidence that betrayal doesn't have to be the end of the story. 3 years later, Clara stood at the dedication ceremony for the Hope and Peace Memorial Foundation, a nonprofit she'd created to support women who'd lost pregnancies. The foundation provided counseling, medical care, and financial assistance. Emmanuel stood beside her, holding 3-year-old Joy, who clutched a white rose. "Today we honor all the mothers who've known this particular grief," Clara said to the gathered crowd. "We honor the babies who never drew breath but who were loved nonetheless. Hope and peace live on through this work, through every mother we help, through every family we support." In the audience, Grace wept. Patricia smiled proudly. Clara's brothers nodded in respect. And somewhere across the city, Donald heard about the foundation on the news. He sat in his room, now employed as a night watchman at a warehouse, and wept for the 1000th time. Diana heard about it too, scrolling through her phone while her 4-year-old son watched cartoons. She felt a twinge of something, maybe regret, maybe just indigestion. She scrolled past. But Clara didn't think about them anymore. She thought about Joy, about Emmanuel, about her family and her work. She thought about the future she was building one day at a time. And she thought about the lessons she'd learned through blood and tears. That betrayal plants seeds of destruction that grow into forests of regret. But for those who survive, who choose healing over bitterness, who open their hearts again despite the risk, for them, there is always the possibility of new gardens blooming. Justice had come, slowly but surely. Donald had lost everything. His marriage, his children, his future, his dignity. Diana had gained nothing. Just a child without a father and a life of struggle. But Clara had survived. And more than that, she had bloomed. Standing there at the foundation dedication, holding Emmanuel's hand while Joy played at their feet, Clara finally felt something she hadn't felt in years. Peace. Thank you for staying with me to the end. Comment your thoughts on the betrayal, and tell me where you are watching from. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more gripping stories like this. What do you think happens next? Comment below.